In addition to our oversight topic today, we will be hearing the following legislation. Resolution number 371, sponsored by Councilmembers Yusuf Salam and Amanda Farias, designating August 6th annually as Fat Man Scoop Recognition Day in the city of New York and celebrating the signature style that he brought to every musical collaboration and his amazing energy he brought to every audience. Resolution number 428, sponsored by Councilmember Chanel Thomas Henry, celebrating the arrival of the 2026 World Cup in the city of New York, as well as the following legislation that I have sponsored. Intro number 496, a study and report on the installation of potential structures to acknowledge the draft riots of 1863. Resolution number 402, declaring March 6th as Carmen de Lavallade Day in the city of New York to celebrate her life and legacy and to honor her groundbreaking contributions to dance and theater, as well as her role in advancing diversity and artistic excellence in performing arts. And resolution number 429, recognizing the life and legacy of the Alvin Ailey and his honoring his contributions to American dance and the founding of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. First, let me invite Councilmember Salam to speak about his resolution.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Deputy Speaker and Chair, Dr. Natasha Williams, for placing this resolution on today's agenda. And thank you to my colleague, Councilmember Amanda Farias, for joining me as co-sponsor. This one really means a lot to me personally. Isaac Freeman III, known to the world as Fat Man Scoop, was my friend, not a passing acquaintance, not someone I knew from the industry, but a real friend, someone who showed up for me the way that only genuine people do. When I was inaugurated as the council member for Harlem, District 9, Fat Man Scoop pulled up. He didn't have to be there, but that was Isaac. He showed up, put on a show, and made sure that day was something that none of us in that space would ever forget. That was him. That was his gift. He didn't just bring big energy to a performance, he brought it to life. Harlem raised him, Cardinal Hayes shaped him, Hot 97 introduced him to the world. And then the world fell in love with that thunderous voice and unmistakable call and response. Whether it was Be Faithful or a Grammy winning collaboration with Missy Elliott and Ciara, or whether it was simply walking into the room, Fat Man Scoop made you feel something powerful. We lost him on August 30th, 2024. He was 56 years old and still in the middle of doing what he loved. Declaring August 6th as Fat Man Scoop Recognition Day in New York City is the least we can do for a man who gave this city and this world so much of himself. Rest well, Isaac. Fat Man Scoop, Harlem sees you, and we miss you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Now, let me invite Councilmember Virginia Maloney to speak about her resolution that she has with Councilmember Thomas Henry.
Thank you, Chair Williams. I am proud to introduce on behalf of my colleague, Councilmember Thomas Henry, and to co-sponsor Reso 428, which will celebrate the arrival of the 2026 World Cup. We will have 1.2 million visitors descending in the New York, New Jersey area to celebrate the Cup with 48 teams, among which all New Yorkers can find their heritage competing in the tournament and are welcomed to join us in celebrating the Cup. And I'm grateful we have this resolution.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. And finally, let me say a few words about my legislation, intro number 496, which would require the Commission of the Department of Cultural Affairs to conduct a study and provide a report on the installation of potential structures acknowledging the draft riots of 1863. During the Civil War in 1863, 2 days after the first draft lottery, violent riots broke out in New York City and lasted 5 days, with thousands of people, mostly Irish mobs, terrorizing the city. The rioters specifically targeted African Americans, abolitionists, and the wealthy. Many Irish New Yorkers who were already going through economic hard times were concerned about the competition they would potentially face if free Blacks and Confederate states migrated to New York. The riots had particularly devastating effects on the African American community in downtown Manhattan. Frightened by what they had experienced, many African American New Yorkers fled uptown to what is now Harlem. I want to thank my constituent, Nia Clark, a reporter for New York One, for giving me the background that led to this resolution. My two resolutions commemorating the lives and lasting legacies of Carmen de Lavalade and Alvin Ailey are tributes to two of America's greatest dancers. Having met as high school students in Los Angeles, Miss de Lavalade took Mr. Ailey to her dance classes at the studio of Lester Horton, whose small integrated company was their first dance home together. After Mr. Horton's untimely death, Miss de Lavalade and Mr. Ailey came to New York City to dance on Broadway. Soon, Mr. Ailey created Blues Suite and Revelations for his then tiny new company, the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. I love Revelations, by the way. I try to see it every year, which is now a universally acclaimed global ambassador. His admiration for his first partner, Miss de Lavalade, never waned. Together, they brought African American dancers into the spotlight in a way that revolutionized dance in America. As a former dancer, I could say a lot more, but nothing would match seeing them dance for yourself in the many videos that are still available to watch Mr. Ailey's brilliant Horton-inspired choreography that is still performed by his company today. Yes, and now for a few words about our oversight topic. All of us on this committee know that New York City is the arts and cultural capital of our country. Many would say of the world, we delight in applauding the amazing and innovative work that our arts and cultural organizations do across the city in performance after performance and exhibition after exhibition. We take great pride in our museums, theaters, concert halls, botanical gardens, zoos, and so much more. But let me now focus on the final piece of our committee's name, international relations. New York City is also one of the great international relations capitals of the world, and we are proud to host the United Nations and its many foreign dignitaries. Today's oversight topic focuses on an educational program that our Mayor's Office for International Affairs has been operating since 2015, Junior Ambassadors. This program takes classrooms of students in the 7th, 8th, or 9th grade for a tour and briefing at the UN and sends UN diplomats into our schools for discussions about the work of the UN. As junior ambassadors, staffers say we are creating global diplomats locally. I applaud this attempt to involve our young people in a program that can help give them global awareness that all of us will need in order to handle the geopolitical issues that our country will continue to face in the coming years. I want all of our public school students to have the opportunity that Junior Ambassadors offers, an opportunity that is as unique to New York City as Broadway is. We have the UN right here, and I hope that we can figure out how to make its worldwide, life-changing work tangible for all of our students. The UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which underpin the Junior Ambassadors Program, take on world poverty, hunger, inequality, health, quality education, clean energy, climate action, and more. All of our New York City public school students need a deep understanding of the 17 goals to live productively as citizens of our city and of the world. There is no place to better start than with Junior Ambassadors. Now I want to acknowledge my colleagues on the committee who are present, Councilmember Lewis, Salam, Maloney, Stevens, and Hudson. I want to thank my staff, Priyanka, Shaki, Alejandro, Regina, and Carolina. I would like to remind everyone from the public who wishes to testify in person today that you must fill out an appearance card, which is located on the desk of the Sergeant at Arms at the back of the room. Please fill out the slip even if you have already registered to testify in advance. When you are called, please limit your testimony to 2 minutes, whether you are testifying in person or on Zoom. I am also going to ask my colleagues to limit their questions and comments to 5 minutes. But before we go to the administration to talk about the hearings topic today, we've been joined by Manhattan Borough President Brad Hoylman-Siegel, and I will ask him to come up. I know he wants to testify on my draft rights bill. I'm super excited to have the Borough President's support.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Deputy Speaker and members of the committee. It's good to see everyone. I'm Brad Hoylman Siegel. I have the honor of serving as Manhattan Borough President. 83 years since the New York City draft riots nearly tore this borough from its foundations and brought the deadly horrors of racial discrimination to our front doors. I commend you for your efforts today to acknowledge the draft riots of 1863. Several terrific New York historians have written about the draft riots, I might note, including independent scholar Barnett Schechter and our own Harold Holzer, whom I named a few months ago as the new Manhattan Borough historian, with explicit instructions to find a way or ways to memorialize these 1863 draft riots. The riots, as you know, started in a brutally hot week after the Union's big victory at the Battle of Gettysburg, when the nation's first ever conscription law went into effect. On 2nd Avenue and 46th Street, Army officers were preparing to pull the initial draftees' names out of a large wooden wheel when an angry mob outside began throwing bricks through the windows. Over the next couple of days, the outbreak grew into unspeakable proportions. Commercial establishments as small as corner drugstores and as large as Brooks Brothers were vandalized and looted. People's apartments were broken into, furnishings destroyed, police were attacked on the street. But worst of all, it was the violence directed at Black people. Men were dragged from their homes in Lower Manhattan, beaten, sexually mutilated, lynched, set on fire, or driven off the docks into the river to their deaths. The grotesque killing spree claimed some 119 victims, but we don't really know the total. It could have been much higher. There's ample reason that Harold Holzer and other historians refer to the draft riots as the worst civil disturbance in American history, save for the Civil War itself. But the worst was yet to come. On July 14th, a mob of white people attacked a new modern orphanage for Black children that stood on the northwest corner of 5th Avenue and 43rd Street, the site of a super tall skyscraper now rising next to the city's famous Century Club. The 1863 building, known then as the Colored Orphans Asylum, stood just a block from the source of Manhattan's water supply, the reservoir standing where the New York Public Library now stands, and its occupants included the children of Black soldiers who had recently volunteered to fight for their own freedom in the Union Army. But the site of that orphanage itself, shrouded in construction scaffolding these days, like too much of Manhattan, bears no marker to convey its history. It never has. In fact, when the excavation pit was dug over a decade ago, veteran New York Times reporter, now its official historian, David Dunlap, pleaded for the chance to do just a little archaeological exploration on the site. He hoped to unearth just a few artifacts that could testify to the lives of the forgotten children who once found peace on the site and that ended their time there in terror. David Dunlap was denied access. Well, it's not too late to make amends for the invisibility of the draft riot victims. I would certainly support your study by your legislation, and I hope we can have any experts at my disposal to assist you. My longer testimony, which I'll give you, has some thoughts about locations of markers that you might envision. 5th Avenue and 43rd Street, where the atrocity against the orphan asylum took place, and maybe at the headquarters of the orphanage later built in Harlem, up at 143rd Street between Broadway and Amsterdam. The site of the first outbreak of the anti-draft violence, 3rd Avenue between 46th and 47th Streets. The site of the Federal Armory on 2nd Avenue and 23rd Street, burned down by the rioters, and the nearby Union Steam Factory, where workers were clubbed to death or pushed to their deaths from upper windows. The site of the old New York Times Tribune building south of City Hall, not far from here, where freedom of the press almost came to extinction. And perhaps even the Basilica of the Old St. Patrick's Cathedral around Prince and Mulberry Streets, where Archbishop John Hughes made a hugely important speech imploring Irish Americans to put down their weapons and end the violence that was staining the streets and reputation of New York City. We should not be afraid to mark these spots. We proudly celebrate our great accomplishments here, but we seem to have far more reservation admitting our failures. We should identify all such sites, either in celebration or in solemn acknowledgement. History is complicated, but unless we fully confront and understand the past, we can't and we won't find what Lincoln once called a vast future. The idea is to learn from our mistakes, not ignore them, by making sure, as you have put forward, we don't erase what happened in Manhattan as well as other cities. By the way, in July 1863, we will make sure nothing as ugly and devastating ever happens again. It's part of our history. We have closed our eyes too far for too long, but it's not too late to open them and shine a light on the truth. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Borough President. I really also appreciate your support in coming and testifying. I agree with you. And a few years ago, Councilmember Hudson, as well as Councilmember Lewis, and I put together a Juneteenth package. One of the pieces of the package was around truth and reconciliation. And while there are many harms that have happened in the city, directly by government, indirectly by government, I believe, and I think many people in the council believe, like, we need to tell the truth and we need to be able to tell these stories. I did not even know about this, and I was horrified to learn about this particular issue and how vast it was and how much it terrorized Black New Yorkers at the time. So I really do appreciate your support and partnership, and I hope that we can get this bill passed swiftly and truly do something to honor the many lives that were lost during the draft riots.
Thank you very much. I'll leave my testimony for you.
Yes, we want your testimony. It was a great testimony. All right. I will now turn to committee council to swear in the administration who will make their way. As I mentioned to them, I'm really excited to have the Mayor's Office of International Affairs here. I don't know, Regina, I don't know when's the last time we've had anything on international. Never. Wow. So we're really excited. And more importantly, really excited for some of the proactive work we can do together in partnership with the council. So yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Could you please raise your right hands? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? I'll call on each of you individually. Commissioner Archila?
Yes, I do.
Carly Avezzano?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And as a reminder to all of our witnesses, please state your name prior to your testimony for the record. Thank you so much, and you may begin.
Thank you so much. My name is Ana Maria Archila. I'm the Commissioner of International Affairs for the City of New York. Good afternoon, Deputy Speaker Williams and members of the committee. It is wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to know that we are invited into this conversation and that let this be the first of many. So my name is Ana Maria Archila. I serve as a commissioner of the Mayor's Office for International Affairs, and I'm joined here by my colleague, Carly Avezzano, who's the Director of Strategic Relationships and the New York City Junior Ambassadors Program. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and to share more about the New York City Junior Ambassadors Program. This program is a citywide initiative based in our office that connects New York City youth, 7th, 8th, and 9th grades with the United Nations, the diplomatic community, and the global learning opportunities. The program reflects New York City's unique role as a global capital and the home to the United Nations, and brings that access directly into our classrooms. The truth is that the Deputy Speaker Williams already described very clearly both the spirit, the intention, and the work of the program, so I'll try to move fast through that description. But since its launch, the Junior Ambassadors Program has grown steadily both in reach and impact. The program has been active for 11 years and has served approximately 600 students each year across 20 classrooms. The majority of participating schools are Title I schools, which ensures that students from historically underserved communities have access to learning experiences that might otherwise be out of reach. The program aims to expose New York City kids to the world of global diplomacy and invite them to see themselves as agents in the world. In total, the program has partnered with 114 different schools, 250 educators, and reached more than 6,000 youth and educators since its inception. Demand for this program continues to grow, with more schools applying each year than we are currently able to accommodate. This year, we received 55 applications, but just 20 for just 20 classroom slots, and alumni applied at a rate of 59%. This shows both the program's success, the hunger for this kind of educational experience, and the need to expand access. A defining feature of the New York City Junior Ambassadors Program is its direct engagement with the diplomatic community and the United Nations. All classrooms participate in a guided tour of the United Nations headquarters, giving students the opportunity to engage with a site of global importance in their own city. In addition, each classroom receives a visit from a diplomat. Through these experiences, students gain firsthand exposure to diplomacy, international perspectives, the global challenges we're all confronting together, and the potential career paths for themselves. This year, we have classes from City Council Districts 2 and 9 in Manhattan, Districts 11, 13, 15, and 16 in the Bronx, Districts 19, 21, 22, and 24 in Queens, Districts 37, 42, 43, 45, 48 in Brooklyn, and Districts 49 and 51 in Staten Island. This year, we're partnering with over 20 permanent missions representing countries from every region, including Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, Latin America, and Australia. These interactions make global issues tangible and relevant in a way that enhances classroom instruction, classroom instruction wouldn't be able to do alone. In addition to these engagements, so the visit to the United Nations and the visit from the diplomats, each classroom receives a small stipend to support student-led action projects aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as the Deputy Speaker was describing. These Sustainable Development Goals are a global framework of 17 goals adopted by all UN member states to address urgent challenges such as poverty, inequality, climate change, and peace by 2030. These projects focus on themes such as climate action, human rights, and sustainable development, and encourage students to think critically about how global challenges manifest at the city and community level. For example, last year, students at PS 78 in Queens did their learning project on the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, clean water and sanitation, to related that Sustainable Development Goal to the conditions in the Newtown Creek, and developed a project that focused on water quality and environmental awareness, including cleaning up local waterways and removing trash. At Icon Charter School number 4, students created a sustainable fashion pieces from recycled materials to raise awareness about the marine conservation and the Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is related to life below water within their school community. These experiences help students see themselves as change makers and connect to global learning to tangible local impact. The educators that participate in this program consistently report that students who participate demonstrate increased confidence, stronger communication skills, a deeper sense of civic responsibility, and we consistently hear from students and educators that this program is transformative. Students begin to see themselves as global citizens. They make connections between their lives and the broader world, and they gain the confidence to participate in conversations about the issues shaping the future. Looking ahead, we see continued demand for this program and a strong interest from schools, educators, and international partners. We are focused on expanding access, strengthening partnerships with the diplomatic community and the United Nations, and building on the program's success. We believe the Junior Ambassador Programs reflects the best of New York City, its diversity, its global leadership, and its commitment to preparing young people for an interconnected world. It ensures that our students are not only learning about the global issues, but are prepared to engage with them and take action. The program embodies the city's commitment not only to host the United Nations, but also plants the seeds of a future that allows us all to recognize the way that our worlds are connected and lean into the idea of interdependence to recommit ourselves to peace and sustainable development for people and the planet. We want to take a moment to thank the New York City Public Schools for their partnership. This idea comes to life every year thanks to their efforts. The miracle that is the New York City Public Schools cannot be understated. We are so proud to be able to partner with the incredible educators in our city that walk into our schools every day, and we are eager to continue this partnership and grow it even more. And with that, I'm going to stop and thank you all for giving us the opportunity to share the story of the New York City Junior Ambassadors Program. And I welcome any questions.
Thank you. I was looking at your testimony because I'm like, the districts you meant, were that school districts or council districts? But it was council districts. And
Those
so
were
the
council.
first question I have is, how do schools partner with the Junior Ambassadors Program and the Mayor's Office for International Affairs? Because my district is not listed. And so that's like number one question problem. So yes, off
We
the top of my
anticipate-
head, based off of your testimony.
Of course, of course. Well, allow me to actually invite my colleague, Carly Amenzano, to speak to this question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is it? Oh, it's on. Okay. So we invite all schools and after-school programs to apply to the program. We make sure that we have diversity in terms of borough. We want to make sure that every borough is represented and that there's several different schools and programs from every borough each year. But besides that, we look at the applications based on what the educator is interested in exposing their students to, how they plan to interact with the Sustainable Development Goals, what their ideas are for learning strategies. So beyond borough, we are interested in what the educators are planning to do with the different elements of the program as well. But all schools and programs in New York City are invited to apply.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, and again, maybe this is an opportunity for us to partner and like work with our school communities on like best practices for applying too, because if you have a set criteria that you're using to select schools, like I could see, certain applications might be stronger and then potentially disproportionately impact where you're going. And so, for instance, like I know I see in the previous year you did have representation in District 28, which is adjacent to my council district. So I'm like, okay, Southeast Queens was represented. But this year there were no districts from like Southeast Queens at all, which Southeast Queens and North Queens are like two different communities, also demographically two different communities. So it's like something like that of course I just would want to be helpful in figuring out ways to like truly ensure that there's representation even like in the borough itself.
Yes.
Okay, so now actually to the questions that were prepared. How many students have participated in the Junior Ambassadors Program since its inception?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Williams, for your question. Since its launch 11 years ago, we've reached over 6,000 students across 114 schools.
Awesome. And how many students, teachers, and classrooms are participating during this school year?
There are 20 classrooms this year, and close to 550 students are participating this year.
Now, essentially, this is alluding to what I was saying. Were they not selected because their applications were not adequate, or because there was not sufficient funding?
Yeah, I want to address that question. So I think we definitely could would love to partner with you to make sure that we are reaching all council districts and really making sure that students have the opportunity to participate. So there's a lot that we could do to improve outreach and to ensure that every corner of the city has the opportunity to join in and get junior diplomats in their corner. We have right now built the capacity to welcome 20 classrooms. So that's kind of the current capacity we have. I think we, would love to see more students reach this opportunity, and I think the selection process both thinks of who are in some ways some of the current classrooms are classrooms that have participated in the past, where the educators understood kind of how the value of this program and were first to apply and eager to kind of engage with us. So I think that also plays into ultimately the selection. So with your partnership with you, I'm sure we could incentivize more applications, and then obviously our capacity exists as it exists right now for 20 classrooms, but more is more if we can get there.
Yes, and I actually asked that question incorrectly.
Mm.
Reading is fundamental as we're talking about children, and so the end part of that. So thank you. 20 classrooms participated this year, but how many teachers and classrooms applied to the program but were not able to participate?
So this year there were 55 applications for 20 slots.
Okay. And then you kind of answered it already, and that's based off of pretty much mixture of funding and the criteria that you have. Okay. How many total staff members are in your office, and how many staff members work on the Junior Ambassadors Program full-time or part-time?
So the Office of International Affairs has 13 total staff members. And sort of the office as a whole is tasked with being the connective tissue to the diplomatic community in New York City, which is the largest diplomatic corps we have in the country. And Carly, my colleague Carly Avazano, is the coordinator of the Junior Ambassadors Program. Everybody in the office participates in supporting the Junior Ambassadors Program, both logistically and sort of programmatically. But we have one full-time person dedicated to this program.
Thank you. And how many diplomats are participating during this school year?
This school year, we have 20 diplomats engaged. So we try to get one diplomat per classroom. And that is usually the norm every year. Is that correct?
How do you select the diplomats?
So we invite all diplomats from all UN missions to sign up to volunteer to participate. And then once they sign up, we're able to match them with a classroom based on classroom interest, the SDGs that they're focused on, and also the interest of the classroom in learning about a specific country as well.
Do you get a lot of participation from the diplomats to volunteer, or is it like difficult to recruit them?
I think because we have strong relationships with them throughout the year, we're able to continue to talk about the value of the program, and then we have them sign up. But diplomats are very busy. They have very busy schedules at the UN, so that is the main challenge with getting more diplomats than we currently have.
Yes. That said, what is the time commitment for the diplomats? Is it one diplomat per classroom, or is each participating diplomat assigned to multiple classrooms?
So we assign each diplomat to one classroom, and the time commitment is an hour at the school. So that's excluding travel time.
Once a month?
They do one visit per school year. So
okay.
Yes. So we would match the school, and the school gets one visit, and the diplomat visits one classroom.
Okay, and what are the transportation and UN ticket costs on the average for one classroom?
So we're very thankful to the United Nations for their partnership. They're able to give us a discounted rate of half off a normal tour cost, which we pay approximately $200 per tour. Normally, it would cost closer to $400
for one classroom. So a classroom of students can come and
yes,
for 200. Okay. What is the current total budget for the program?
So this year, the program is running on about $25,000. And that, it's not a lot of money for a program that touches 500 young people. In previous years, we've had a little bit more. And this program was resourced over the last 3 years from a foundation that partnered with the Mayor's Fund. So it was a slightly better resource, but it is essentially a very lean program that touches lots of young people and sort of imprints in them a very foundational understanding of their relationship to the world, with the combination of the visit to the UN, the visits from diplomats, and then the projects that the kids do with the classroom.
Yeah, and my next question was, what other sources of funding does this program have? So you mentioned outside funding. Is there any government funding?
So, obviously the office as a whole engages in the program. So in some ways the office is, which is directly funded by the mayor's office or city hall, is kind of supporting the program. And we have had funding from the MSC Foundation through the support of the mayor's fund. This year we're using funds from last year's grant that it was wrapping up, and also from our sort of core office fund or budget.
Okay, I have more questions, but I will pause and go to my colleagues. I know Councilmember Stevens has a question.
Well, hello.
Hello.
I'm really excited to hear about this program, and I guess I'll start with something you had mentioned that not only schools could apply, but after schools could apply. Could you talk a little bit about like what that partnership looks like, and is there like different criterias from schools and after school programs?
There's currently no different criteria. We evaluate all applications equally, and we're in partnership with DYCD in helping to get the word out and let after school programs know.
And
about
what
it.
does that look like? What does that partnership look like to help spread the word, especially to providers?
Yes, so we share about the opportunity, the deadline to apply, and we share that with our partners and staff at DYCD, and then they're able to connect to after school programs.
So they're basically just sending it to their providers.
Yes.
Okay. I would love to connect to talk more about some ideas because sometimes that just gets lost in translation with providers,
Totally.
especially
Yes.
in certain communities. My next question is just how do you track it? I mean, obviously it's not a lot of money, so I guess it's really hard to kind of track. But how do you track students, and do you help them with like trying to connect them to schools that have programs like Model UN and to continue this work? And Model UN typically takes place in high school. I'm sure you guys know, and so like especially because you're working with a younger population, how does do you guys do any of that work around like the continuation?
Yeah, this is where the educators play a crucial role. The educators are the ones that initiate the application for our program. They are the ones that work with the students to select the projects that they will do, and they're the ones that maintain the relationship with the students. Um, we know that from the conversations with educators that they continue to hear from the students about how revealing it is to visit the UN and to hear from diplomats and to kind of understand the role that individual actors play in a global sphere. But we ourselves as an office don't keep sort of
Yeah.
detailed track of where the students are going.
Do you guys
We
like
rely
have
on the schools to do
any
that.
contact with like alumni and folks who've like been in the program? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, we keep in touch as they reach out to us often to tell us about how they want to engage with the UN again. Oftentimes, if they're not in the program, they're still interested in engaging with the UN, and they're able to attend events, have speaking opportunities. So it's we keep in touch and we learn about as they're engaging with the UN as well.
I guess my next question too would just be around like prime example, LIU has an advanced certificate program in like UN, and do you guys do any partnership with them as far as like coming in and talking with the students to have like people who are from their community and represent them? I think just always just trying to think about ways that we are like making it real for young people, because even with sometimes with diplomats it's like that's so far gone. And I actually know a couple of friends who went. Well, I went to LIU, but I know people who went through that UN program as well. And so, how do you kind of make it more localized for young people to even make those through lines and connection? And have you even thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we localize their learning is by trying to really support them in thinking about their classroom projects. I believe in the handouts we have some examples. So you might each have received this, which shows, it just has a brief description of the project that particular school did related to the Sustainable Development Goals. So that's kind of one way that we sort of concretize their learning. And we would welcome more. I think there's so much opportunity. Obviously, what happens at the UN doesn't just happen with diplomats, it's happened with actors from civil society of
Yeah.
many kinds. And obviously, young people themselves are actors in the world. And so we would welcome more ideas to enrich the program and make it even more relatable and more concrete for young people.
Yeah, no, I just was thinking that especially like there's people who are like learning this in this process, and so even having some partnership there, and I know they're always
Yes.
looking for like internship hours and things to do.
It's a great
Like, how do we
idea.
then maximize the things that are already going on to make sure that we're making those connections? So,
No,
cool.
and it would help us amplify the reach and capacity of the program to actually establish some of these partnerships. Thank you for that idea.
No problem. Thank you. Those are the questions I have.
Councilmember Maloney.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for testifying. As the council member who represents the United Nations, it's great to hold this hearing on the New York City Junior Ambassadors Program. And I would note that District 4, which is right around the UN, is also not included in the list.
Yes. We should
So
correct
we've got
that.
room for
Let's correct
expansion.
all the districts, yes.
In your testimony, you mentioned that you serve 20 classrooms per year roughly, and more than double that in applications. So what are the exact plans you have for how to expand the program, and what are the primary constraints for an expansion, whether it's budget, staff capacity, the participating UN missions, or something else?
Well, as you might know, I'm fairly new in my role, having started about 5 weeks ago, and trying to sort of define our lines of work. I'll say that the Junior Ambassadors Program holds both the spirit and the promise of our office. Our office's responsibility. Obviously, New York City is the host to the UN. The UN is a tremendously important global space and is under tremendous pressures right now. It would be, it is a tremendous contribution to the future of the UN to actually plant the seeds of understanding the importance of multilateralism and as young people are thinking about and learning about the world. I say all of this to say that we would love to grow this program. We also have, as an office, the responsibility to kind of relate to the whole diplomatic community and to think about how, not just to relate and serve the diplomatic community, but also to think about how our international relationships work, help us learn from the world and to benefit New Yorkers. So as I am thinking about the work of this office, there will be both the lines of work that are about relating to other cities to help us bring innovation and kind of accelerate our learning that helps us advance the affordability agenda and many other things that are important to New Yorkers. We are committed to sort of being a city that supports the UN and the efforts to advance peace and to address the challenges that the Sustainable Development Goals name and kind of organize. And we believe that in order for the UN to continue to succeed, New York City has to play the role of bringing it to life for people. And this program embodies that. So we will continue to do this work. We want to continue to do this work and want to figure out how to expand its reach. I think the idea of partnership with other places that other sort of educational entities that are sort of aligned on purpose would allow us to do that. And of course, the limitation is always just capacity. At the end of the day, we are a fairly tight, lean office with a big responsibility, a lovely responsibility, but still a complex kind of multi-layered one. So I think it's balancing the different priorities that we have to drive in this work.
And with your current annual budget, how much of the program is city funded versus leaning on some of those partnerships that you already have in place, like UN Foundation?
Yeah. So at the staff level, the support of the program is city funded. The activities, the stipends, the gatherings that we do for educators, for students, have been greatly supported by the philanthropic partnership that we have, that we're wrapping up now with the MSC Foundation. So we will look for other partners to help us continue that work. But kind of at the staff level, our capacity will remain intact, and we'll continue to do that when we can. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that Councilmember Ung has joined us on Zoom. And now I'll turn my questions to program content. So what kinds of projects do students complete by the end of the program?
So students complete action-oriented projects that are aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and those are connecting global issues to local realities as well. And we have some examples of those projects in the booklets that we shared with you. But some that I want to highlight are an example of one is last year at Marsh Avenue Exponentiary Learning School, students examined gender inequality globally, and they created children's books and a website to raise awareness and challenge stereotypes that they were seeing in their own lives, including on social media. And that connects to SDG number 5, gender equity or equality. But there are many examples of projects like that.
Thank you. What specific skills does the program work to develop in students? For example, research, critical and analytical thinking, public speaking.
The program builds critical thinking, public speaking, collaboration, leadership, and civic engagement skills through the action projects, the visits to the UN, and the visits with diplomats. They also will present their work at the end of the year at a celebration with their peers and peers from all different schools. So they're able to express the learning that they had and also take leadership in sharing their work.
And in turn, what specific knowledge does the program bring to students? For example, global affairs, current events, understanding of international institutions.
Students gain knowledge of global affairs, international institutions like the United Nations, current global challenges, ways to take action, and also potential career pathways.
Thank you. If you could expand, what components of the program should be refined and or increased?
So, as I mentioned before, the work that happens at the UN and the sort of work that is outlined in the Sustainable Development Goals is work that is not only done by diplomats, is done by many actors, government, civil society actors, activists, people. So I think a program that helps young people understand all those layers of global action would be even more enriching. So we could, with sort of time and capacity and resources, imagine actually connecting young people not just to the visit of one diplomat once, but maybe that diplomat and people who are trying to solve that challenge in that place, so that young people get a sort of a richer understanding of the work that they are learning about. Mm-hmm.
What is your vision for the program, especially as a new commissioner? I mean, you've already kind of made some comments on certain things you
Yes.
will want to see changed. For example, can you imagine serving all New York City public school 7th graders every year so that no student would miss this opportunity? What would that take in terms of both staffing and funding?
That is a wonderful vision and one that we celebrate. I think that many New Yorkers are kind of disconnected from the United Nations, even though we are the host city and the place where the world gathers, but also the place where the world lives. So we would love to, eventually see every 7th grader benefit from this experience and from the presence of the UN here. We are actively in conversations with City Hall. We think obviously expanding to all 7th graders would require just full integration into the curriculum and would, probably need to be rooted inside the New York City public schools But we, we love the vision, and I think the program was started as a seed that ideally will continue to grow. So
And do you have an estimate of how much it would cost? Like if we wanted to expand it to all seventh graders as an example. Clearly, like I get what you're saying. There's
Yeah.
definitely like some logistical challenges. But from a
Yeah.
fiscal perspective,
Yeah.
do you have an estimate?
We have not tried to do that exercise of
Mhm.
thinking about what it would take to expand this experience to all seventh graders, but we can circle back and sort of mm, uh,
And I'm like
with more
going to
thinking about it.
Regina because I know we have. Do you know the number of how many seventh grade students? Do you have the? Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's like simple math. Like if you're only
Yes,
serving
we can.
250 students this year, that was the number. How many students?
No, about around 550.
Oh, 500.
Yes.
Okay. So if there's 55,000
Someone do the math.
seventh graders and you're spending $25,000, it would be good to understand how
Yes.
much it costs
Yes.
because we can't talk about
Totally.
expansion if we don't know how
Yes.
much it'll require.
Yes, and
to actually do this
expansion. We're running it with the capacity
Oh.
that we have. Do you have the number?
Yeah, it's like 2.7 million. Which is not a lot of money compared to many things that we pay for in this city. So I just think, how we say drop in the bucket, $2.7 million is definitely a drop in the bucket for a budget that's over $100 billion.
Yes.
Because $1 billion is like, like 100,000 million. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. $1 billion. And this
Yes.
is, $100 billion in New
Yes.
York City.
Yes, yes. I think
Okay.
we love the vision, and I think it's definitely a very worthy sort of aspiration. And again, I think the New York City public school system has been a tremendously important partner in this because we do a lot of the kind of logistic and coordination, the recruitment of diplomats, but the work itself, the making meaning of the visits to the UN, making meaning of the learning is done by New York City teachers who are tremendous heroes. So that I think these would need to be a deeply sort of held goal and partnership with New York City public schools.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, going from 25,000 to 2.7 plus million is a huge expansion.
Yes.
But I can't imagine, like, even if you went to 200,000,
Yes.
like, how you could potentially expand the program.
Yes.
Okay. What challenges would you see, though, in expanding the program? Again, you mentioned some of them, but I don't know if you wanted to highlight anything else. Obviously, staffing. You only have one staffer working
Yeah.
on this. And
Yeah,
you
I
only
think
have 13 staffers in your office.
Staffing would be an important challenge to address. I would say, if you sort of run this exercise of thinking through what it would take, it would require a different kind of staffing than what we do right now, which is a collaboration between people whose job is not necessarily to run the junior ambassadors programs. There would need to be a dedicated team that is doing these and that is making sure that every school has the opportunity, every classroom has a support, so it would be an important undertaking that requires dedicated staff. And obviously the other really important partner is the UN. They have the capacity, they have the UN has kind of a system to receive visits and to provide tours and to provide briefings, but that capacity we are less clear on how expandable it is. But it's it would require some conversations with them as well, and obviously we rely on the partnership that we have with diplomats and the relationship that we have with diplomats. There are 193 missions. 100
Yes.
and 93 missions
Mhm.
represented here in New York City. We have deep relationships with many of them, obviously not all of them. So the expansion would also require kind of like an expansion of relationship capacity to bring folks into the classroom. But all of these things are more logistical than, they're sort of material things that can be addressed, of course.
In your answer to one of the questions, you mentioned that you feel like New Yorkers kind of forget that the UN exists. And I'm wondering, in the macro portfolio of this office, um, do you have any scopes of work that are like, I feel like the Junior Ambassadors Program could be in a folder that is like, engaging with New Yorkers.
Mm-hmm.
And then it could be Junior Ambassadors, it could be something else. And so, do you have like a scope of work that is dedicated to exactly like what you've highlighted, this sort of disconnect between New Yorkers and the UN?
Yeah.
Or is the Junior Ambassadors Program like one of the only ways that your office is connecting younger New Yorkers, but New Yorkers nonetheless to the
Yeah.
UN?
Yeah. I would say right now the Junior Ambassadors Program is the most concrete way that we are connecting New Yorkers to the UN and vice versa. Um, we I participated in a meeting with, or I helped set up a meeting between Mayor Mamdani and the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. And in that conversation, the mayor asked the Secretary General if he had ever been invited to visit a school or a hospital or Rikers Island. And the Secretary General said, no, never. He has never been invited to kind of see how the municipal government runs. So I think there has been just for traditionally a relationship of mostly kind of logistical support, but these moment I think demands a deeper engagement that my office is really committed to making real. Um, we of course see heads of state arrive in our city every year in September, and most New Yorkers experience that as a very challenging traffic moment. But there is really an opportunity to actually bring to life the fact that the world has chosen New York City as its location to talk to each other, and we would love to discuss with you and with others ideas that could bring New Yorkers into the UN and could bring the UN into the life of New Yorkers. The World Cup will offer an opportunity. Other moments in the near future will offer that opportunity as well. And I think the UN leadership is very open and very eager to see some of that happen.
Yeah, obviously, well, it's not that obvious, so I shouldn't say that. But, hearings, obviously, we want, I keep using this word, hearings, we want to put things on the record for the
Yeah.
public. We know that real work is not going to come from this hearing, but we really, as a committee staff, passionate about ensuring that our international committee and community is a part of the conversation of what's happening in New York City.
Yes.
I agree with you and share the sentiments that, based off of the little that I know, because I only know a little bit about your office, that it does seem like a big disconnect and a missed opportunity for both our city government. The council has perpetual missed opportunities. And I do find that on the other side of City Hall, there are also missed opportunities, which it does seem from hearing you speak now that you all are trying to
Yeah.
at least start the conversation of making those connections. Yeah. I do hope we can continue to talk about this offline to figure out ways to work together. I find often that, and I said this to you before, that in areas where we really could work together, the whole entire city hall could work together, we don't.
Yeah.
And I find it troubling for many reasons. So I do hope that this committee can work with your office to figure out, things that we can do proactively to make the connection to New Yorkers and the UN. We obviously want to see the Junior Ambassadors Program expanded and understand that city resources are limited, and we have a new unit in the council that is dedicated to working with the external private community to fund certain things that government either is not prioritizing or doesn't have the resources to prioritize. So it's good to know that through the Fund for the City of New York that this program has been, supported. Also look forward to seeing what foundations and private entities would be willing to support this program from our end. And so the last question I have is what can the City Council do to support your office in expanding this program, but also in what I feel is your vision based off of what you said today, in not only doing the logistical things that cost us money, they cost our city money to do the many logistical things that come with the UN, but also the proactive ways that we can benefit by the UN being here and also contribute to the UN being here outside of, financial resources that go to supporting the UN on an array of things.
Yeah. So I think that there is a tremendous opportunity for New York City as a whole to really lead in what is called subnational diplomacy, which is the idea, so many of the problems that are sort of global problems, climate change, displacement of people, war, inequality, they actually land in the city. And the city, well, the municipal government has to advance solutions that address those challenges. And I think New York City has a lot to learn and also to share with the world. And we would welcome the opportunity to work in a very collaborative way to actually allow New York to play that leadership role in promoting solutions and urging action on these many kind of interlocking global crises. And I think it is not it's work that, as you said, is work of the whole government, not one branch or the other. There are often opportunities because the UN is constantly hosting conversations of the world in the headquarters. There are often so many requests for New York City leaders to sort of participate in those conversations. And so now that we are starting this moment of more engagement, my commitment to you is that we will reach out to you when these requests are happening, where these opportunities arise, so that the City Council can represent the perspective of New Yorkers in these conversations. An example is, next week there is a forum on migration. Leaders from all over the world that are trying to tackle the reality of migration and propose a vision for how to relate to migration humanely are gathering at the UN. Obviously, New York City is the immigrant city of the United States, and we have 3 million people here who are born outside of the US, and we have a lot to share on our efforts. And so that's a perfect example of how both kind of the city municipal government as a whole could be playing a bigger role. And we, as the office that is most directly in touch with the UN, have the most visibility on those conversations, and we can make sure that you all are aware and able to take advantage of those opportunities to learn and to lead.
Yes, and I feel like that's a great way you can help us engage, but I want to know, how can we help you? We want to be helpful to you as well.
I appreciate that.
Learning about the G Ambassadors program, and again, in general, just learning about your office. One, I don't think many people know that your office exists.
That's true.
Nor do they know the scope of work. And so, even internally within the council, like, maybe there needs to be more of a education, information sharing process about your office. But, as chair, like, I really do want to be helpful and not, point fingers or whatever. Like, I'm trying to, in my head right now, thinking about, like, who could potentially be a donor to support it. So, like, we have initiatives. I mean, like, maybe there should be an initiative that, the council puts together. I don't know, but, it's those type of things that I'm trying to think through in real time. I just want to know from you how you feel the council could be supportive in the work that you're doing, and then the work that you want to do, because the work that you want to do right now, I don't think your office probably has the capacity and needs to do a lot of the things you want to do. So how can we be helpful?
I think all the things that you listed, helping us make sure that the council knows this office exists and the work that we currently do, the work that we aspire to do, that would be tremendously helpful on its own. Um, Helping us think of ways to resource the work so that we can actually sort of achieve the potential of the promise and the responsibility of the office. And, in particular, the Junior Ambassadors Program is the way that most firmly plants the connection between New York City, New Yorkers, and the UN. And so, any thoughts, any ideas that you have to resource that work are ideas that we welcome. Our commitment is shared to make these to make these work as sort of far-reaching and impactful as it could be.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I
wonderful
so
to see you.
appreciate you all for coming. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for all of your hard work with very limited resources and continuing to make the program happen. We really appreciate it. And we definitely want to be an accomplice in figuring out how to expand in ways that fill in some of the gaps that were noted today during the hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deputy
Yes.
Speaker. It's wonderful
Thank
to
you.
see you all.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you. Does anyone here? I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and that the decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recording as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, again, you can fill out the appearance card. If you are testifying remotely, please listen for your name to be called. Once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you. So I know we have some names, and so I will call up Lucy Sexton first, and then Jeff.
Did I unmute myself? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. I'm so sorry. My name is Lucy Sexton. I am here as a leader of the Cultural Advocacy Coalition, New Yorkers for Culture and Arts, because it's crucially important that the city lift up and celebrate New York's artists and cultural legends. I'm also here as a lifelong New York dancer and the former leader of the New York Dance and Performance Awards, the Best Cities. Carmen de Lavalad's impact is hard to measure. She was a transcendent dance artist, a performer and choreographer who worked in ballet, in modern, on TV, at the Metropolitan Opera, and more. Her career spanned more than 6 decades. I want to lift up in particular her role in Alvin Ailey's life and company. She co-founded the company with Mr. Ailey. It was originally called, as you know, the De Lavalada Ailey Company. And at the end of his life, when he was struggling with what is widely understood to be ravages of HIV, Mr. Lavalade was there, helping to steady and guide him as his health declined, and helping to steady and guide the company so that there was no question of the Ailey Company ending with Mr. Ailey's death, as it well could have. Mr. Lavalade, along with such condense and he would go impactful When my grammar school at PS3, they received visits, training, and inspiration from regular classes by Alvin Ailey teaching artists. They can do phrases from Revelations to this day. My older daughter in her 20s is now making her career as a choreographer and dance teaching artist. Like I said, Carmen de Lavalad's impact is immeasurable. Thank you, Chair Williams, for both of your resolutions. Thanks to Councilmember Salam for his resolution saluting another legendary artist. Thanks to the City Council for your steadfast support of culture and the arts in New York City. Thank you for hearing my testimony. And sorry, I'm in a cab.
It's okay. Thank you, Lucy, for always being a trusted person to come testify at our hearings. It was nice to see you last week. Okay, next up, Jeff.
May begin.
My name is Jeff. I work for the Center for Family Support Services, CFS. I'm an ambassador for the Center for Family Support, advocating for people with disabilities. I do advocacy work. I'm here to talk about how the disability community helps out with help me out. I'm someone with a disability. I've been an advocate in the disability community for a long time. I meet legislators like Tony Simone, Linda Rosenthal, Liz Kruger, and I feel that people with disabilities should have a say in getting the right supports they need and the right you know opportunities. I'm someone like having getting services through an agency called CFS, and then I felt that I feel like we needed more support and more opportunity to get ourselves out there. That's what I feel. Um, and
Jeff.
I've been yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think you might be logged into the wrong hearing. There is another disabilities hearing. Oh, it's been deferred? Okay. So it's been deferred. Do we have a reschedule date?
Am I in the
So,
wrong here?
yes, the hearing was deferred, the disabilities hearing. This is the Cultural Affairs, Libraries, and International Relations Committee. Can I make sure I say
Thank
that?
you so much. We're going to jump off and hopefully we'll get the correct meeting invite.
Yeah, it's been deferred, but maybe we're looking now to see if they set a new date for this hearing to happen. No.
Thank you. If you
No.
can't find out now,
No, we don't. It's not on our Legistar website, council website.
No, it is. But thank you. If you can't find out now, you have his email and you can email Jeff so we can.
I don't think we have the capacity to do that, but I guess similar to how you found out about this hearing, you can look online. And you know what we'll do is we'll have committee staff for that committee just flag it. I'm sure they might reach out to people. So we'll have committee staff. And you said you're from Center for Family Representation?
The Center for Family Support.
Oh, Family Support. Okay. Okay. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you so much for your testimony. Okay, seeing that there is no more people signed up. I know that we had some amazing teachers that probably had to go back and teach our babies. So we look forward to them submitting testimony to us. And thank you so much. This hearing is adjourned.